Jagannatha Jaya, Jagannatha Jaya, Baladeva Jaya, Subhadramaya Jaya, Jagannatha Jaya, Jagannatha Jaya, Baladeva Jaya, Subhadramaya Jaya, Gauranitai 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 Jaya, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Purusha Stotra Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Mantra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Dai Gaur Pramanande Hari Hari Bol Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, titled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya, text number 18. Maitreya Uvacha Sadhu Pristam Tvaya Sadhu Lokan Sadhu Anugrinata Lokan Sadhu Anugrinata Kirtim Vitanvata Loke Kirtim Vitanvata Loke Atmano Adok Sajatmana Atmano Adok Sajatmanaha Maitreya Vacha Sadhu Pristam Tvaya Sadhu Lokan Sadhvanugrinata Kirtim Vitanvata Loke Atmano Adok Sajatmanaha Maitreya Vacha Sadhu Pristam Tvaya Sadhu Lokan Sadhvanugrinata Kirtim Vitanvata Loke Atmano Adok Sajatmanaha Mataji's. Word for word translation. Maitreya Vacha. Sri Maitreya said, Sadhu, all good. Pristam, I am asked. Toya, by you. Sadhu, O good one. Lokan, all the people. Sadhu Anugrinata, showing mercy in goodness. Kirtim, glories. Vitanvata, broadcasting. Loke, in the world. Atmana, of the self. Adoksaja, the transcendence. Atmanaha, mind. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, Sri Maitreya said, O Vidura, all glory unto you. You have inquired from me of the greatest of all goodness, and thus you have shown your mercy, both to the world and to me, because your mind is always absorbed in thoughts of the transcendence. Purport. Maitreya Muni, who was experienced in the science of transcendence, could understand that Vidura's mind was fully absorbed in transcendence. Adoksaja means that which transcends the limits of sense perception or sensuous experience. The Lord is transcendental to our sense experience, but He reveals Himself to the sincere devotee. Because Vidura was always absorbed in thought of the Lord, Maitreya could estimate Vidura's transcendental value. He appreciated the valuable inquiries of Vidura and thus thanked them with great honor. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksu Ramanitam Yena Tasmei Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class today. So, we're continuing our discussion from the 5th chapter of Canto 3, titled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya. So, for the first 17 texts, we were hearing Vidura speaking. We saw how he approaches Maitreya with great humility and puts forward different questions towards Maitreya Muni. And in today's text, text 18, is the first verse that Maitreya Muni is speaking in response to Vidura's questions. And in the verses we've seen so far in this chapter, we see the great glorious qualities of Vidura. First thing Prabhupada mentions we can learn from Vidura is the Vaishnava quality of humility. In the second text of this chapter, Vidura, he starts asking questions. And interestingly, he doesn't directly ask questions about Krishna's pastimes, because that's what initially he wanted to hear from Uddhava. He was asking Uddhava, can you please tell me more about Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's teachings? And Uddhava, being much younger than Vidura, he didn't feel it was appropriate for him to instruct Vidura, because Vidura was on the level of his father. And Maitreya Muni was close by, so Uddhava was thinking, I'm so much younger than Vidura, how can I be your spiritual master, how can I preach to you? Instead, Maitreya Muni, who is much more elder than me, it would be more appropriate if you take instruction from him. So then Uddhava, he recommends Vidura that you please go and take these instructions from Maitreya Muni, you ask him your questions. So Prabhupada explains at the start of this chapter that one would naturally think that when Vidura comes and meets Maitreya Muni, immediately he'll start asking, please tell me about Krishna, Krishna's pastimes, this and that. But no, instead he starts asking general questions like, what is, in this material world, everyone's trying to be happy. What can we do to be happy in this world? What can we do to get free of distress? And he starts asking questions in regard to the Purusha avatars. How is this material world created, annihilated, maintained by the Purusha avatars? And so Prabhupada says that from this we can learn the quality of humility. Because Prabhupada's writing in his the purport to the second verse of this chapter, he's explained that Vidura, out of natural humility, he feels it awkward to immediately just come to a great personality and immediately just start asking about Krishna. So out of natural humility, Vidura, he first asks general questions which will be beneficial for the whole world, for common men. And we can understand this ourselves. If some great personality comes, a sannyasi or Maharaj, and we get darshan from them, it will be a bit awkward for us to just immediately come into the room and just say, Hare Krishna Maharaj, my name is so-and-so, can you please tell me about the Rasa Leela, like that. So, if someone said like that, you would think, this person is very imprudent, he doesn't know proper manners, Vaishnava etiquette. So, same way, Prabhupada explains, that's the same thing that's going in Vidura's mind. Out of natural humility, he thinks of himself as in a very lowly position, and so he doesn't immediately jump straight to Krishna Leela. Instead, he asks these general questions which will be beneficial for the whole world. And now, when we see, now Vidura has finished his questions, and now we'll see Maitreya Muni speaking. And now from Maitreya Muni, we can learn the same lesson of humility, the same lesson of gratitude, all these Vaishnava qualities. So both the speaker and the hearer in Srimad Bhagavatam, both of them are glorified. Both of them, they display Vaishnava qualities. For the speaker, he's glorified because when he comes before a senior personality, he comes with great humility, awe and reverence, offers his respects. Before any personality, they start asking questions to another personality in Srimad Bhagavatam. You always see, they will first offer their obeisances and they would offer glories that, you're such a great personality, please show your mercy on me. They first offer some prayers and words of glorification. So we can see that with the hearers of Srimad Bhagavatam, such as Vidura or Parikshit Maharaj, before he would ask questions to Sukadeva Goswami, he would glorify him. And we see that throughout all the Shastras, throughout the Bhagavatam. And now we'll see Maitreya Muni, even the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, they also maintain this same level of humility and gratitude. After Vidura asked these questions, Maitreya Muni, he could have just immediately started answering the question straight away. But no, for the next couple of verses, Maitreya Muni, he would just glorify Vidura. And in today's verse, what's he glorifying? He's saying, thank you for asking these questions in relation to Krishna. These questions in relation to Krishna, the greatest welfare for the whole world. Not only by asking these questions of Krishna, you are benefiting the rest of the world, but you're also benefiting me. So for Maitreya Muni to say this, Maitreya Muni from his side, he's also showing the Vaishnava quality of humility. He could have just immediately started speaking, directly answering the question. But no, first he offers gratitude to Vidura, that thank you for asking these questions. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak about Krishna. By giving me this opportunity to speak about Krishna, I'm going to get purified, I'm going to come closer to Krishna. So this is important for us because sometimes we'll be put in the position of speaking also. Usually we're hearing, but sometimes, by Krishna's arrangement, we'll be asked to give class or speak. But when we're speaking Krishna Katha, that same level of humility and gratitude should still be present. We shouldn't. I was listening to one class recently, Prabhupada, and Prabhupada in that class, he was saying that his Guru Maharaj used to always say that one should never think that he's a Bada Vaishnava or a very big or great Vaishnava. So we should be careful of that whenever we're asked to speak, and we should learn from these personalities of Srimad Bhagavatam that even when they're asked to speak about Krishna, even when they're put in the spotlight in front of a great assembly, giving class, talking about Krishna's glories, they still maintain that Vaishnava humility, that Vaishnava gratitude. So Maitreya, instead of immediately speaking, he's first very humbly thanking Vidura. Thank you for asking these questions. Actually, you're doing a great service unto me by asking these questions because you're giving me an opportunity to speak about Krishna. So this is one wonderful quality we can learn from throughout the Bhagavatam, through all the great personalities. We see even in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when the 6 Goswamis, Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami particularly, when they approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what is the mood in which they approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? They introduce, generally when we go up to someone, we first introduce ourselves. My name is so-and-so, I am this and this, like that. And how did Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, how did they introduce themselves to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Although they're the most exalted, greatest personalities of all time, although they're such great acharyas, they introduced themselves to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by saying, Nich jati, nich sangi, patita dhamma, kuvasai kupapari, gonainu janama. Nich jati, O Mahaprabhu, we're the most fallen. Our jati, our birth is of a low class. Nich sangi, our sangha, our association throughout our whole life has been with the lowest of all mankind. Nich jati, nich sangi, patita adama. Patita means fallen. We are the most fallen, adama. Adama means the lowest of mankind. So this is how they're introducing themselves. Generally, in modern society, when we go to introduce ourselves, that'll be the last thing we say. Just like when we're going out to search for a job, you go with your resume and say, this is my resume. I graduated from this university. I got honors. I got a double degree. I did masters in this. I did PhD in this. I have this skills. I have good communication skills. I have good management skills. This is my work experience. I worked in this company. In this company, I got this promotion. I got to this level, manager level, and in my next job, I got to this level. So in the material world, it's the opposite. You're always bragging about yourselves. And the more you can brag about yourselves, the more people look up to you. Oh, wow, such a great personality, He has such great self-esteem, confidence. Look at all the things he's achieved in his life. But in spirituality, it's the other way around. In spirituality, one is very humble. Although the person might be very great and exalted, when they introduce themselves in front of others, in front of senior personalities, they take a very humble stance. And we see that with the 6 Goswamis, Rupa, Sanatana Goswami, how they introduced themselves to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And after introducing themselves to Mahaprabhu in that humble mood, then what is the question they ask? The first question they ask is, or Sanatana Goswami he asks, is, who am I? Why am I suffering in this world? So again, one would think this is just a very basic question. Doesn't Sanatana Goswami know that he's not the body, he's the soul? Doesn't Sanatana Goswami know that, the reason why everyone is suffering in this world is due to bodily consciousness? Doesn't he know the reason everyone is suffering is because of forgetfulness of Krishna? We hear in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, they were born in families of Brahmanas. And Sanatana Goswami, he used to get great exalted Brahmanas to come to his house and recite Bhagavatam. So Sanatana Goswami had already heard all of Bhagavatam repeatedly over and over again. He had studied all the Shastras. So obviously he knows who he is. He knows he's not the body, he knows he's the soul. He knows the conclusion of all the Shastras, that he's the servant of Krishna. He knows why everyone is suffering in this world. Still, why is he asking that question? Same reason as we're seeing here with Vidura. He could have just immediately asked, very elevated topics about Krishna Lila, about Krishna Prema, all these different things. But no, instead he asked very basic questions out of natural humility. Same thing we see with Sanatana Goswami. He has already read all the Shastras, he's heard Bhagavatam so many times. He could have started off by asking, how can I, go to the elevated platform of Krishna Prema? How can I go from Bhava to Prema? He can ask very deep philosophical questions about Krishna or Bhakti. But instead he asks the most basic question, who am I? K-M-A. Who am I? Why am I suffering in this world? What is the purpose of life? So again, we see throughout the Shastras this mood of humility that all these Vaishnavas, they carry in their heart. When they're approaching a senior personality, and also even when they're speaking, that same humility is still intact. Mahaprabhu, he explains, or in CC it's explained, that the verse, Trinadapi Sunichena, Taro Rivasa Sishuna, Amanina Manidena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. That one should be humble just like grass, one should be more tolerant than a tree, one should give all respect to others and should not expect any respect for oneself in return. And in CC it's explained that all of the devotees of Mahaprabhu, they wore this verse around their neck as a necklace, and they constantly wore it. So for us to qualify ourselves, or to call ourselves as devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we need to wear this necklace of Trinadapi Sunichana constantly around our neck, and we should always be displaying these qualities of Vaishnava humility, tolerance, not expecting any respect, giving all respects to other living beings. Not just human beings or Vaishnavas, but all living beings, the Shastras explain. Like in 3rd canto, Lord Kapila Dev, he says, if someone is worshipping the deity, if someone is a pujari and worshipping the deity, but if that person doesn't see Krishna as the super soul in the heart of all living entities and doesn't offer respect to other living entities, then that person's worship of the deity is as good as offering oblations onto a pile of ashes. So just like you have a fire sacrifice, you have a big fire, and that fire kund is said to be the mouth of Vishnu. And in a fire sacrifice, you offer different oblations. You offer ghee, grains, and different things into a fire. And when you're offering it, it's like offering articles of worship into the mouth of Lord Vishnu. But if someone said, okay, today we're going to have a fire yagna, come, we're going to have Nrsimha Mahayagna. And you come to a Mahayagna and you see there's no fire, there's just a pile of ashes. And you see a Brahmana just pouring ghee into the pile of ashes and pouring fruits and grains into the pile of ashes. You think, what's the use of this? Where is this going? You're just wasting time. And that's what Lord Kapila Dev is saying, that you can be engaged in deity worship, you can be a pujari, a Brahmana and serving the deity, but if you don't see the deity, if you don't see Krishna as a super soul in the heart of all living entities, and if you're not respecting all other living entities, seeing Krishna in their heart, then your deity worship is as good as offering oblations onto a pile of ashes. So that's how heavy the Shastras are when it comes to proper Vaishnava dealings. So Vaishnava, it's not that it's just him and Krishna and he forgets everyone else. No, he needs to deal appropriately with other Vaishnavas, and not just other Vaishnavas or other human beings, but all living entities. Even the animals, the birds and beasts. Vaishnava, he sees Krishna in the heart of all living entities. And he sees every living entity's body as the temple of Vishnu, as the temple of Radha Gopinath. In this way he offers respect, not just to other Vaishnavas, not just to other human beings, but all living entities, the birds, the animals, even ants and bugs. And we see this through like Mrigari, the hunter, and even Prabhupada himself. One time Prabhupada was with Sutakriti Prabhu, and Prabhupada immediately, Sutakriti Prabhu was Prabhupada's personal servant, and Prabhupada immediately, something happened and Prabhupada called Sutakriti Prabhu, come here immediately. And then Sutakriti Prabhu, immediately he came, ran up to Prabhupada. Yes, Prabhupada, what's the matter? What happened? And Prabhupada said, you see that on the floor? And Sutakriti Prabhu was looking all over the floor, he couldn't see anything, it was just, just the floor. And after much searching, he finally saw there was one bug there. And then Prabhupada said, and then Sutakriti Prabhu said, okay, yes, Prabhupada, I can see it. You're talking about this bug? And then Prabhupada said, yes. And Prabhupada said, you see that bug? I've been watching it for the past 10 minutes. The bug hasn't moved an inch from where it is for the last 10 minutes. And Sutakriti Prabhu was like, okay, the bug hasn't moved for 10 minutes, so what's the big deal? And Prabhupada said, you know what that means? That means he's hungry. He's very hungry and he can't find any food. That's why he's depressed and he's just staying there, not going anywhere. So you take him very gently, take him out to the garden and put him on some plant or leaf, and that way you'll get some nourishment, and that way the bug will be happy. So then Sutakriti Prabhu, he gently picks up the bug, goes outside into the garden, puts the bug into the garden. And Sutakriti Prabhu, he was remembering in his memories that, how merciful is my spiritual master. Not only is he so compassionate to all the fallen conditioned souls in the Western worlds, but even to a small insignificant bug, my spiritual master is so much compassionate. And he's feeling so much pain seeing even a bug suffering. So this is the vision of the Vaishnava. The Vaishnava, he sees everyone in relation to Krishna, not just humans, but even the animals. And he sees Krishna in the hearts of all living entities. Stavara jangama deki na deki tarmuti sarvatra hoya nija istadeva spurti. So this is the vision of the Mahabhagavad. The Mahabhagavad, in all moving and non-moving things, he sees his Istadev, he sees his most worshipful object, Radha Gopinath, everywhere, wherever he goes. So, I forgot how we came to that. Okay, we were talking about humility, about Vaishnava qualities, about the speaker and the listener. They both need to exemplify that. Another example, we talked about Sanatana Goswami also as an example. Another example we can think of is Prahlad Maharaj. Yes, I was reading this recently in Bhagavatam 7th canto, and I was hearing one lecture by Radhana Maharaj about this section of 7th canto. And if you look at the 7th canto Bhagavatam, after Hiranyakashipu, he is killed by Lord Nrsimhadev. And then Lord Nrsimhadev, he kills all of Hiranyakashipu's soldiers. And then he sits on Hiranyakashipu's throne. And still his anger hasn't subsided. Still he's very hot, in red hot anger. And then all the different demigods and different sages and rishis, they all come and offer prayers to cool down Nrsimhadev, to calm him down. And you'll see this, the Vidyadharas will come, the Gandharvas will come, the Charanas will come, Lord Shiva will come, Brahma will come, like this, all different demigods, all different personalities from all the different planetary systems. They're all assembled there, and all of them came one by one, offering different prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev in glorification. But none of them could satisfy, none of them could please Lord Nrsimhadev. His anger was still boiling hot, he was still very ferocious in anger. And then finally everyone gave up, and then Brahma, he pointed at Prahlad and told Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad, the whole reason Nrsimhadev came was because of your father. So it's your fault that Lord Nrsimhadev has come, your father's fault. So, you're responsible. So you please go and calm down Lord Nrsimhadev. He's in a very angry mood. Even Lakshmi Devi, even she couldn't please or pacify Lord Nrsimhadev. She was so afraid of Lord Nrsimhadev's form due to Yogamaya that she was even, what to speak of going in front of Lord Nrsimhadev and talking to him, she didn't even want to go close. She was so afraid and fearful. So finally Brahma, he requests Prahlad Maharaj. And Prabhupada, in one lecture, he explains that Prahlad Maharaj is just a 5-year-old boy. And a 5-year-old boy, they're very innocent and very simple. Whatever you ask them to do, they'll just do very innocently. And so Prahlad Maharaj, out of natural simplicity, he said, okay, Brahma is asking me. Yeah, Brahma said, because of me only Lord Nrsimhadev came, because of my father, okay, I should go and do something. So Prahlad Maharaj, in a very simple, humble mood, he goes forward. And then he starts offering praise to Lord Nrsimhadev, and then Lord Nrsimhadev gets pacified. And Lord Nrsimhadev is so pleased with, before Prahlad Maharaj even starts offering praise, Lord Nrsimhadev, he puts his hand on top of Prahlad's head. And interestingly, the thing that I was hearing Radha Maharaj, he was highlighting in this section, was the mood in which Prahlad Maharaj is approaching Lord Nrsimhadev. Generally, if we look at, in general, material circumstances, when Prahlad Maharaj is asked to go forward, one would think that Prahlad would be a little proud, because here's all the greatest demigods from all around the universe, and they all tried to do something, and they couldn't do it. Brahma, he tried to calm down Lord Nrsimhadev, Brahma couldn't do it. Then Shiva, he came forward. He tried to please Lord Nrsimhadev, he couldn't do it. Like this, Indra and all the different demigods all around the universe, they tried to please Lord Nrsimhadev and he couldn't do it. And now Prahlad Maharaj, he's going, and he's going to do the thing which no one else could do. So one would think that Prahlad Maharaj would have got a little proud that, look at me, Lord Shiva, he couldn't do it, Brahma couldn't do it, Indra couldn't do it, but now, yes, now it's my time for glory. In the Shastras it said, Vaishnavanam Yatha Sambhu, that Lord Shiva, he's always glorified as the greatest or Lord of all Vaishnavas. Brahma is said to be Adi Kavaya. He's the first person that Vishnu he preached to. Right from Brahma's heart, Vishnu he gave all transcendental knowledge. But now it's my time for glory. I'm going to do something which even Lord Shiva couldn't do. I'm going to do something which even Lord Brahma couldn't do. And this way my glories will be sung forever. So that will be the general condition, the mentality of a conditioned soul. That he sees other Vaishnavas going to do some service, and he sees other persons unable to do that particular service, then he comes forward and he's able to do it. Then naturally one will think, yes, I'm so great. All these other persons, they couldn't do it, but I could do it. Just see my glories. And one would think that maybe a little bit of pride would have come to Prahlad Maharaj. But no, Prahlad Maharaj's mood was complete opposite. What's the first thing he says to Lord Nrsimhadev? First thing he says is, who am I to offer prayers unto you? What is my background? I am the son, I was born in the most degraded family. I was born as the descendant or the son of all the Asuras. My father was none other than the greatest of all demons, Hiranyakashipu. Who am I? I'm the most fallen. How can I offer prayers unto you? When Lord Shiva, when Lord Brahma, when all these great demigods, when they couldn't appease you, what is my position, what is my qualification to offer praise unto you? And in this purport to this verse, Prabhupada highlights again this point of Vaishnava humility. That just see Prahlad Maharaj's humility. He is such a great exalted soul that he's going to do something which no one else could do. He's going to do something which Shiva couldn't do, Brahma couldn't do, all the greatest demigods around the universe couldn't do. But still, even though he's such a great exalted Vaishnava, his vision of himself is as the most fallen. His vision of himself is that I'm just the son of the demons. Who am I? What is my qualification? And in that purport, Prabhupada writes that one should not be proud of one's Vaishnava qualifications. And His Holiness Radha Maharaj, he explains, or he highlights this point and says, generally, it's said that we shouldn't be proud of our material abilities. That, okay, I'm very good at problem solving, managing, I'm very good at singing, or I have a very good memory, and so on. But Radha Maharaj says, what to speak of material qualifications, we shouldn't be proud of even our Vaishnava qualifications. So we might be which means we shouldn't even be proud of being humble. We shouldn't even be proud of being very sincere pujari or very sincere cook, so on and so on. So even our Vaishnava qualifications, Prabhupada explains, we shouldn't be even proud of that. At the moment we're proud, that's it, we lost it. And Prabhupada ends that purport by saying that unless one is meek and humble, it is very difficult to make advancement in spiritual life. So Radha Maharaj explains that if we're having any difficulty in our spiritual life, if we're going through ups and downs, if we're feeling we're not progressing much in our spiritual life, then most likely this is the reason. We're not acting meek and humble. And it's a very nice way Prabhupada, if you get a chance you can read that purport. Prabhupada very nicely he's discussing this concept of Vaishnava humility. And very nicely he finishes the purport by this very beautiful line, that unless one is meek and humble, it is very difficult to make advancement in spiritual life. So we see this with Prahlad Maharaj, we see this with the 6 Goswamis, and we're seeing that with Vidura and Maitreya Rishi in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. Another thing we can learn is the quality of gratitude or appreciating other devotees. And we see this with Maitreya Muni. I'll read the purport. Maitreya Muni, who was experienced in the science of transcendence, could understand that Vidura's mind was fully absorbed in transcendence. So Maitreya Muni, being very experienced in spiritual life, he's making an observation that this devotee in front of me, Vidura, he is a great Mahabhagavad. He is always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. So this is Maitreya Muni's observation. And then later on Prabhupada says that because Vidura was always absorbed in the thought of the Lord, Maitreya could estimate Vidura's transcendental value. He appreciated the valuable inquiries of Vidura and thus thanked him with great honor. So Prabhupada explains in other places that this is the mood of a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava, he observes the good qualities in others, he observes the bhakti or the devotion or the attachment other devotees they have towards the Lord, and he highlights that and he appreciates that and he glorifies that. And he prays to the Lord that he can develop that same attachment to the Lord, that same devotion to the Lord as this Vaishnava. And that's what we're seeing Maitreya Rishi. He has heard 17 verses from Vidura, and by hearing these verses recited by Vidura, Maitreya Muni is observing that this personality in front of me, Vidura, he is no ordinary soul. He is a great Mahabhagavad. This person, Vidura, his mind is always absorbed in Krishna. And this is a great exalted soul. And observing this great quality of Vidura, Maitreya Rishi is glorifying Vidura and appreciating Vidura's great qualities. And we see this very nicely displayed throughout the whole of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu, he himself displays this quality of appreciating devotees. For example, in one chapter in Madhya Lila, so every year the Bengali Vaishnavas, they would visit Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, and they would attend the Ratha Yatra, they would go to the Gundicha temple, they would clean the whole Gundicha temple, then come back. There'll be a lot of feasting, dancing, singing, Krishna Katha, and then there'll be other festivals after the Jagannath Ratha Yatra, they will all attend together. And then the time will come when all the Bengali Vaishnavas, they would have to leave Jagannath Puri and go back to Bengal. And in this section of Madhya Lila, it's explained the scene is explained of what happens when the devotees are about to leave Jagannath Puri and go to Bengal. Before all the Vaishnavas, they leave Jagannath Puri and go to Bengal, Mahaprabhu, he would call up each devotee and glorify them and appreciate their wonderful qualities, wonderful bhakti towards the Lord in front of all the other Vaishnavas. So in this chapter in Madhya Leela, first of all, he calls Raghava Pandit forward and he says, just see how great is the devotion of our Raghava Pandit. And then Mahaprabhu starts reciting his glories in front of the other Vaishnavas, highlighting his great bhakti towards the Lord. And Mahaprabhu, there's a lot of verses Mahaprabhu recites in glorification of Raghava Pandit, but basically he's saying that Raghava Pandit, he has such great devotion towards his deities that in his backyard, Raghava Pandit, he has hundreds of trees of coconuts. And these hundreds of trees of coconuts, they have millions of coconut fruits. Mahaprabhu says this specifically in CC, that he has millions of coconut fruits in his backyard. But instead of just picking coconuts right from his backyard, he goes 20 miles away just to get coconuts from somewhere else which are supposedly more tasty, more sweeter than coconuts in his backyard. So it's just like, imagine we're staying here in the temple and just in front of us, in the park in front of us, St. Nina's Park, there's hundreds and thousands of coconut trees. But instead of the pujaris going to the park and picking coconuts for Radha Gopinath, they go 20 miles away to Parramatta, all the way to get coconuts. And if someone observes this, they will think, why are you wasting your time? You have hundreds of coconut trees right in front of the temple, just on the other side of the road. Just cross the road and get coconuts there. Why are you going, 20 miles away to Parramatta to get coconuts? What's the big deal? And in those days, they didn't have cars. In general, when you see in CC, when devotees are traveling from one place to another, they travel by walking. So he used to walk all the way from his house to 20 miles away just to get more sweeter nectarian coconuts. So in this way, Mahaprabhu is highlighting the great devotion of Raghava Pandit. Not only were these sweeter coconuts 20 miles away from his house, but it's given in CC, these coconuts were much more expensive than ordinary coconuts. The price for these coconuts was 3, 4, or 5 times even more. But still, he would travel such a distance just to get a couple of more sweeter nectarian coconuts for his deities. His vision was that Krishna is Supreme Personal God, I'm his servant, I need to get the best of everything for Krishna. Never mind if I have to walk 20 miles away. Never mind if I have to pay 3 times, 4 times, or 5 times the price. I'm willing to pay. But I want my Lord to have the best of everything. So this was Raghava Pandit's mood. And in this way he used to serve his deities. And there's a long series of verses in which Mahaprabhu is glorifying his devotee, Raghava Pandit. Not just coconuts, but all kinds of fruits, vegetables, dresses, clothes, all different articles of worship or offering for the deities. He used to get the best of everything with great endeavor and offer it to his deities. So in this way, Mahaprabhu, he first starts glorifying Raghava Pandit in front of the other devotees. Just see how great is the devotion of our Raghava Pandit. Just see how great is his bhakti. So this is what Mahaprabhu, by his personal example, he's showing. This is what we should be observing in other devotees. Prabhupada explains there's the fly and the honeybee. The fly is always looking for garbage, but the honeybee is looking for the essence of everything, the honey, the nectarian honey. And what is that nectarian honey which we should be looking for? It is the bhakti that other devotees have for the Lord. So yes, different devotees, they have their anarthas and their faults, but Prabhupada says we should overlook the anarthas and just go for the honey. Just see how this devotee is serving the Lord, how this devotee has bhakti for the Lord. This anartha, that fault, we overlook and see, okay, this person, he might have so-and-so faults, but, he's cooking for the Lord so nicely. Every day he's coming on time, he's doing this service so pakka. How regulated is this devotee? So we should zoom in on these qualities of Vaishnavas, how they're serving the Lord, how they have bhakti for the Lord, how they have such eagerness to serve the Lord, how they're doing the service. So we should look at that. And Prabhupada, he gives an example from the Shastras of the moon, that when one looks at the moon, one doesn't pick out the faults with the moon, that, there's all these little, gray patches on the moon. But no, when the moon comes out in the sky, there's a full moon, one says, oh, look at the sky, how beautiful is the moon. Today is a full moon. How nice is the sky with the moon and the stars. No one goes and looks, oh, today is a full moon, look at all those, gray patches on the moon. Look how ugly the moon looks. No one says like that. But the patches are there, we see it, but it doesn't process in our mind. We just overlook it. We don't zoom in and focus on those patches. But instead, we see the beautiful moon in the night sky and the stars and the moon together. So in the same way, Prabhupada says, we overlook and put everything to the background, all the faults and anarthas Vaishnavas might have, and instead we zoom in and we see with how love and devotion they're serving the Lord, and with how much determination, what Vaishnava qualities they're displaying, and we zoom in on that. And if we do like that, then my Guru Maharaj explains that the super soul in our heart, Krishna within our heart, he becomes pleased, and Krishna being pleased within our heart, Krishna will make us also acquire the same quality we're appreciating in other Vaishnavas. So say someone is very nicely cooking for Krishna, and in our mind we're thinking, wow, this devotee, Prem Sagar Prabhu, he's cooking such nice prasad, he's taking care of devotees so nicely, I wish I could be like that. My Guru Maharaj explains, the moment the super soul notices this, that we're seeing a good quality of another Vaishnava, and we're appreciating that good quality, then Krishna being pleased, he will make us develop that same quality. In this way, we can make spiritual advancement very quickly. And there's one verse, Queen Kunti says in the first canto of Bhagavatam, Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinanti Abhikshnaha Smaranti Nandanti Tave Hitam Jana. So in this verse, Queen Kunti is saying different process of devotional service. Shrinvanti means hearing about Krishna, Gayanti speaking about Krishna, remembering about Krishna, Smaranti. And there's one interesting word she uses in this verse, which we don't hear often. We always hear of Shavanam, we always hear of Kirtanam, we always hear of Smaranam, remembering the Lord. But there's one interesting word she uses in this sloka, and that is Nandanti. Nandanti means appreciating the good or appreciating the devotional service of others, or taking pleasure in others' spiritual advancement. So she highlights this as another principle of devotional service. She categorizes this along with Shrinvanti, Gayanti and Smaranti. And Radhanath Maharaj, I was hearing, he was quoting this verse in one class, and he was saying that if we just do this one thing of Nandanti, if we just do this one thing of just becoming happy at seeing the other devotees' progress in spiritual life, appreciating the advancement of other devotees, simply by doing this one thing, we can go back to Godhead. We don't have to do anything ourselves. Just if we do Nandanti, just we see, okay, this devotee is making so much advancement, he's reciting slokas so much, or this devotee, before he was like that, but now he's such a great sincere devotee. So if we just simply see others advancing in spiritual life, and we genuinely feel happy that, wow, this devotee is making so much advancement, just by that one activity of Nandanti, appreciating other devotees' advancement, Radhanath Maharaj explains, we can just go back to Godhead, just by doing that one thing. So that is the power of appreciating the good in other Vaishnavas. That is the power of taking pleasure in other devotees' devotional service. And throughout CC, we see devotees, Mahaprabhu himself demonstrating this. For example, in this pastime, as I was explaining, first he glorifies Raghava Pandit, then he calls forward Vasudev Dutt, and it's mentioned in CC when Mahaprabhu, he used to glorify his devotees, it was as if he had 5 mouths. 5 mouths means that he would just go on speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking, just like non-stop, as if he had 5 mouths just glorifying that devotee. For us, in conditioned life, it's like the other way around. When there's some gossip or some fault with someone else, then, it's like as if we had 5 mouths. But in spiritual life, when one is glorifying or appreciating other devotees' qualities, that's when it's as if he had 5 mouths. But it's given when Mahaprabhu, he was glorifying Vasudev Dutt, it's as if he had 1,000 of mouths. So that's how much Vasudev Dutt, he was dear to Mahaprabhu. So in this way, Mahaprabhu, he calls up different devotees and he glorifies them before they go to Bengal, in front of other Vaishnavas. He also calls forward Murari Gupta. And again, the thing that Mahaprabhu is always highlighting in his devotees is their bhakti towards the Lord. So that is what we should be looking for, their bhakti. Not material skills or abilities, that's secondary. But the thing that we should be looking, the essence of everything is the love and the devotion particular Vaishnava has for the Lord. Other things like skills, abilities, management skills or musical skills, memory skills, ability to memorize a lot of slokas, these are secondary. The essence is bhakti. Someone might not be a very good singer, someone might not have very good memory, or might not be able to recite, so much. But if they have a lot of bhakti, we should zoom in on that and appreciate that. And if you look carefully, whenever Mahaprabhu is glorifying a devotee of his, he's always highlighting that point, that look at his bhakti, just look how much attachment he has for the Lord. And same thing, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is highlighting for Murari Gupta. Just see how great is his attachment for Lord Ramachandra. You know, I started speaking about the glories of Krishna, so many verses, I started preaching to him over and over and again, but still his mind wasn't convinced. Still he was so much attached to Lord Ramachandra that he came to me crying and he said that I would rather commit suicide than give up the lotus feet of my Lord Ramachandra. I cannot give up his lotus feet. So in this way, Mahaprabhu, through his personal example, we see how he's always seeing the good of others and appreciating the bhakti of others. Another time, Mahaprabhu was taking darshan of Lord Jagannath near the Garuda Stamba, and there was one Mataji that in her eagerness to see Lord Jagannath, because Mahaprabhu was so tall, she couldn't see. Mahaprabhu was right in front of her and she couldn't see Lord Jagannath. And out of her eagerness to see Lord Jagannath, this lady, being oblivious to her surroundings, because sometimes, you know, you get so absorbed you forget your surroundings. And being so absorbed in her eagerness to see Lord Jagannath, to take darshan of Lord Jagannath, she doesn't realize it's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in front of her, and she just climbs on top of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, puts her feet on Mahaprabhu's shoulder, and starts taking darshan. And when Govinda, Mahaprabhu's personal servant, he sees this, he's just like, what is this? What is this Mataji thinking? You know, this is the Supreme Lord, and she's putting her feet on Mahaprabhu and climbing on his shoulders. And then maybe she's putting her hands on his shoulder. And then Govinda, he sees this, immediately he starts chastising this Mataji and says, get down, what are you doing? You know, you stupid woman, you fool. And then what does Mahaprabhu say? Mahaprabhu in return, he chastises Govinda. What are you doing? Don't chastise her. I am in great awe and reverence seeing her love and devotion for Lord Jagannath. I wish I had the eagerness she has to see Lord Jagannath. You know, you be quiet. In this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he chastises his servant Govinda. So again, what is Mahaprabhu seeing? He is seeing the great love and bhakti that this Mataji has for Lord Jagannath. Just see how great this Mataji's bhakti is for Lord Jagannath, that she's completely oblivious to all her surroundings. Just see how eager she is to have darshan of Lord Jagannath. I wish I could have that same eagerness to see Lord Jagannath. So in this way, Mahaprabhu again is demonstrating what should be the heart of a Vaishnava. He should see the bhakti in other devotees, and in his heart he should desire, I wish I could have the same bhakti for Krishna. I wish I could also do service like this devotee. I wish I could also do like this devotee. And when, as I was mentioning before, when Krishna, he notices this desire in our heart, then Krishna would transform our heart to also acquire those same qualities. So throughout CC, there's numerous examples of this, how Mahaprabhu used to appreciate his devotees. So that's the second point we discussed. First, we talked about humility. Second, appreciating other devotees. One more point I'll mention before we finish. I was also reading in 7th Canto Bhagavatam about Prabhupada. He's explaining about the qualities as Vaishnavas we need to have to be effective preachers. So in the previous 17 verses, we saw qualities of the hero of Srimad Bhagavatam. We're seeing the qualities of Vidura as a hero of Bhagavatam, how he's very humble and how he's very eager to hear about Krishna. Although Vidura, he himself, he mentions that he's already heard about Krishna, he's heard about the Mahabharata from Vyasadeva himself, but still he wants to hear more about Krishna. So this is the nature, or one of the qualities of a hero of Srimad Bhagavatam, that his eagerness is to hear more and more. Even though he's already heard that topic before, still he wants to hear more and more. And the more we hear, the more deeper and deeper we can go into subject matter. So that's one of the qualities of a hero. But now when Maitreya Muni is speaking, we can learn some qualities of what should be the qualities of a speaker of Bhagavatam, what should be the qualities of a preacher of Srimad Bhagavatam. So one thing we already discussed is that the speaker of Bhagavatam, he also has to be very humble, he also has to be very grateful. A few other qualities that Prabhupada mentions in the 7th canto in relation to Prahlad Maharaj, we can discuss. So in the 7th canto, there's one chapter which describes Prahlad Maharaj preaching to his classmates at school. So it's given that when Sandana and Marka, they used to leave the classroom during lunch break and go to do the other duties. the children will be left alone in the playground. So they'll have like an hour for lunch. And during that lunch break time, Prahlad Maharaj, he would preach to his classmates at school. And this is, like kindergarten. All of them are 5 years old. And Prahlad Maharaj would preach to them very nicely. And that chapter is so amazing. It was really amazing how Prahlad Maharaj is very nicely preaching to his classmates at school. And in one class, Radha Maharaj, he was explaining that as preachers, we should learn from Prahlad Maharaj how we should preach. And then someone asked Radha Maharaj this question: what is it that Prahlad Maharaj has that we should learn to be effective preachers? And Radha Maharaj, he highlights this one point about Prahlad Maharaj's preaching. That Prahlad Maharaj, he never considered himself as very big. He never had this Ishwar Bhav with his friends that I'm greater than you, I'm a great Vaishnava. You guys are all sons of demons, you guys are all materialists. Okay, I'm going to preach to you, I'm going to make you devotees. He never had this, this Ishwar Bhav. Instead, Maharaj explains that he dealt with his friends on a very friendly, on a very equal platform. And a very eco-friendly platform, he preached to his friends. And Radha Maharaj explains that if we want to be effective preachers, this is one quality we need to imbibe. That when we're preaching to others, we preach to them as friends. We shouldn't have this Ishwar Bhav, we shouldn't have this great pride that, I'm a great Vaishnava and you guys are all, you're very foolish, you don't know so much, you engage in all sinful activities. Okay, I'll preach to you now and I'll make you into devotees. So this Ishwar Bhav, one should be careful of, avoid, and this pride of being a big Vaishnava, one should avoid. So this is one quality Radha Maharaj explains we can learn from Prahlad Maharaj. That when we're preaching to others, we should preach to them on a very equal platform, as friends. Okay, this is my friend, okay, he's engaged in this and that, let me help him out, let me preach to him nicely, and let me assist my friend in coming closer to Krishna's lotus feet. So this is the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. And if you look at that chapter of 7th canto, how nicely Prahlad Maharaj, he preaches to his friends in a very nice, friendly, very gentle way. He explains that, my dear friends, this human form of life is very important. Although this human form of life is very temporary, it is of great values, of great substance, because using this human form of life, one can get liberated. And one should start engaging in bhakti right at the age of 5 years old. And then Prahlad Maharaj, he starts talking about the futility of mature existence, that why should we engage in mature activities for mature happiness and pleasure? Mature happiness and distress is automatically predestined. Whatever happiness we're supposed to get, we'll get by nature's accord. We shouldn't endeavor for it. This way, he'll start talking about mature sense gratification, putting it down, and say that in mature life, one has to put great endeavor to work very hard just for sense gratification. And you work very hard to attain something, but that something that you want to attain is never, it doesn't meet your expectation, and you're always disappointed. In this way, Prahlad Maharaj very systematically starts preaching to his friends. Then his friends, they say, but, okay, we understand that in mature life we have to work very hard, but even in spiritual life, even when it comes to serving your Krishna, don't we also have to work very hard? So what's the difference? Mature life we work hard, in spiritual life also we have to put great endeavor to please Krishna. Then Prahlad Maharaj says, no, actually it's not like that. In serving your family, in serving your society, friends, nation, one needs to put a lot of endeavor. And even after putting a lot of endeavor, your family won't be satisfied, your community won't be satisfied, your nation won't be satisfied. But when it comes to Krishna, it is very, very easy to please him. With just a little endeavor, you can very easily please him. So in this way, Prahlad Maharaj is very nicely encouraging his friends that why go for sense gratification? It's so hard, and even after working so hard, you don't get the result you want. Instead, you just get distress. But look on the other side. There's Krishna. And in Krishna, you don't have to put much endeavor. You just do a little bit. Patram, pushpam, palamtam. You just offer him a leaf, a fruit and flower. That's it. Krishna is very easily satisfied. In this way, Prahlad Maharaj compares both sides. Okay, see, on this side we have material life. It's so hard. What do you get? You just get suffering. On this side, you have spiritual life. Krishna is so merciful. Krishna is so kind. Krishna is sitting in your heart as a super soul. He's been there always. You just do a little bit and Krishna is so pleased with you. So, therefore, you please worship Krishna. So in this way, very nicely, very gently, Prahlad Maharaj, he preaches to his demoniac schoolmates, and he transformed them into Vaishnavas. Then in the next chapter, in one purport, Prabhupada explains, what is it that Prahlad Maharaj had that made Prahlad Maharaj's preaching effective? Because many devotees are preaching, but we see some devotees preaching is more effective than others. Some devotees, they preach and they get a lot of results. They're able to transform the hearts of other persons, make them into devotees, make them into serious devotees. Whereas others, they're also trying to preach, but they're not getting the same results. So what is it the thing that makes the difference? So in this purport, in the next chapter, Prabhupada, he explains about 4 qualities that Prahlad Maharaj had that made Prahlad Maharaj's preaching effective, that made Prahlad Maharaj transform all of his classmates that were demons into pure Pakka Vaishnavas. Number 1, Prabhupada explains, I'll say the 4 things. Prabhupada says that Prahlad Maharaj, he was qualified, he was sincere, he was serious about practicing devotional service, and he followed in the footsteps of his Guru Maharaj, Narad Muni. So because Prahlad Maharaj, he had these 4 qualities, his preaching was effective and he was able to transform all these demons into devotees. So first thing, Prabhupada explains, he was qualified. Again, what does qualified mean? Qualified doesn't mean that you know 100 slokas, you memorize 100 slokas, 1,000 slokas. Qualified doesn't mean you know 10 different tunes on the harmonium or 50 different mantras on the mridanga. These are all material skills. Qualified means Vaishnava qualifications, as Mahaprabhu explains, as the Goswamis explain. The 24 different Vaishnava qualifications, such as humility, kindness, compassion. Because Prahlad Maharaj was such a great exemplary Vaishnava, his classmates, they were completely won over by him. Because of Prahlad Maharaj's humility, his gentle dealings, his kindness, his classmates, they just couldn't resist. Prahlad, he's such a nice friend of ours, and he's saying like this, okay, it must be true, let us also follow him. So they were won over by Prahlad Maharaj's Vaishnava qualifications. Same thing with Prabhupada. Prabhupada preached to the Westerners during the 70s with such great humility, such sincerity, and everyone was just won over by Prabhupada's qualifications, Vaishnava qualities, and they just surrendered their life to Prabhupada. So that's number 1, that Prahlad was qualified. Number 2 is sincere. And we come across this word sincere many times. In one lecture, I heard recently, my Guru Maharaj, someone was asking this question to my Guru Maharaj, what does it mean to be sincere? And it was interesting the way my Guru Maharaj, he answered this question. He said, to be sincere means at every moment we should be thinking, at every moment we should be asking myself, what is the best thing I can do for Krishna's pleasure at this moment? If a devotee is always thinking like this, what is the best thing I can do for Krishna's pleasure at this moment? What is the best thing I can do for Krishna pleasure at this moment? If someone is thinking like this constantly, then definitely you consider that person as sincere. So this is the way you define sincerity. If someone is always thinking or having this anxiety, what should I do with my time, energy, with my words and possession at this time to please Krishna? Okay, it's 5:15 in the morning, it's japa time. What is the best thing I can do for Krishna at this time? Best thing I can do is sit down and try and chant my rounds as attentively as possible. Everything else is secondary. This is japa time, this is my time to chant Hare Krishna attentively. So the best thing I can do for Krishna's pleasure at this time is to chant my rounds very attentively. So like this way, we should constantly throughout the whole day ask this question to ourselves. What is the best thing I can do for Krishna's pleasure at this time? If someone is constantly doing like this, then he's qualified as sincere. Number 3, Prabhupada explains, is that he is serious about practicing Krishna consciousness. And this is something we can very easily understand. Unless we're serious about bhakti ourselves, how can we convince others to take up bhakti? If we ourselves aren't following the 4 regs or chanting our rounds properly, aren't strictly hearing and chanting about Krishna, how can we inspire others to also hear and chant about Krishna? So as Mahaprabhu explains, that by our own living example, we should preach to others. So we ourselves should be a living example of Bhagavatam. We ourselves should chant attentively. We ourselves should hear and chant about Krishna.